Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Elisa Parker, and she is founder of C. Jane Do. Elisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's so great to be here with you.
So great to finally have you on the show, and we got a lot to cover today. I mean, you're a very busy woman. The work you're doing with, of course, C. Jane Do, the work you're doing with the ERA Coalition, and just so much more. So we're going to get into all of that and overall the current state of feminist leadership. But before we do that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with what we like to call our Mission Matters Minute. So, Elisa, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives. So that's our mission. Elisa, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me is co-creating community and doing that with love and really reminding everyone what it means to be human, right? So how do we show up in a world that is just, with love and compassion and equitable? And we can do that in all kinds of ways, right? We could do that through amplifying our stories and music, all of our passions. That's what I love to do.
Great. And love bringing mission-based individuals on the show to share, why they do what they do, how they're doing it, and really what we can all learn from that so we can all grow together. I love that you use the word community. And speaking of community, I'm so thrilled to have and welcome you into our community. We're working on a book for everybody that's been watching this for the show for a while, or if you've listened to our show for our hardcore fans that catch them all. We have a book coming up with Women Connect for Good and Dr. Nancy O'Reilly, and we've been working on this, I don't know, for the last year or so. I feel like we're going on, and this is going to be coming out in the next couple of months, which I'm really excited about. So it should be Q2 of 2024, depending on when you're listening to this. And just to let you know, we're not going to talk that much today about the book. Now, that's intentional, and the reason why is because we will be bringing Elisa back onto the show after the book is live, and we're going to do a big deep dive into the book, so you don't have to worry about that. Like, this is what you call a teaser. So just in the spirit of teasing, how excited are you for the new book, Elisa?
Adam, I am so thrilled. First of all, I have such a deep admiration for Dr. Nancy. We connected several years back through another initiative prior to the ERA Coalition that I'm excited to talk about. But I mean, this is, like I said, in co-creating community, this is all about relationships. It's all about how we're showing up together. It's so many of us who are co-authors in this book. We talk a lot about the work we're doing for women's leadership and beyond. And if we can't walk the talk, then what are we doing? We have to be able to collaborate and work hand in hand with each other. And this book is such a great model of that. So I'm so honored to be part of it. And some of the women I've been connected with for years. And so it's just like full circle.
Yeah, it's amazing. And on a personal note, just for myself to be able to get into this and to understand more about the community, understand more about what's happening in leadership and overall, whether it's feminist leadership or overall, and to see these circles of individuals work like yourself that are working really hard on moving initiatives that affect us all. I mean, I just have to ask, so where did all that start for you? Like, how did you get on this path?
How did I get on this path? Well, I mean, I think a lot of us through our own passion have to go back, especially even when we were children. Like, where does this sense for me of justice and storytelling?
You had that as a child? You were thinking about those type of thoughts as a child, or even in your younger years?
I think so. And here's why. Here's the crazy story. One of our partners she just created a film called Still 9 to 5. And it is documenting the making of that movie, which I didn't know was even based on a real organization of women, many secretaries who called themselves 9 to 5. Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, Dolly Parton did such an extraordinary job in the feature film. So when I was in the 4th grade, I saw the film. And those days we had vinyl. And I took out you remember in those old days, like it has the lyrics. Yeah. And I I copied the lyrics of 9 to 5 and I handed it out to everyone in my school.
Wait a minute. Are you serious?
And
You were an activist in the 4th grade? That's amazing.
I never even thought about it. The crazy thing is, Adam, too, this is like crazy. My life is so full of synergy and synchronicities, and I'm learning more of when we're present, how we can receive that even more. But so fast forward with when I started See Jane Do, that about 14, 15 years ago, the focus of that was amplifying stories of everyday women who are doing extraordinary things and then moving into action through those stories. One of my guests is the incredible Lily Tomlin, which was, I'm sure you've experienced that when you've connected with someone that you've idolized for so long, for years. And so when I interviewed Lily Tomlin and told her that story and such, and asked her about her legacy, she's like, just knowing that there's a little girl, you know, who's doing that and doing Edith Ann stories with her siblings in the back of a station wagon is all I need. So life's amazing, really. I mean, it's a lot. Let's face it, it's a lot right now. But that's kind of like where it started. And I have 2 girls, so they're now almost 18 and one just turned 21. So, I mean, that was obviously a big milestone for me of, you know, who's going to be the voice for women and girls, and if not me, then who? And so when I started See Jane Do years back, there weren't a lot of platforms out there for women's voices. And now I love the ripple. There are so many wonderful platforms for women. And now we are working together. And that's the state of feminist leadership that's happening right now.
So I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, like there was probably some zigs and some zags in between you handing out that 4th grade, those lyrics in 4th grade and See Jane Do. Like, were you in other industries or fields and you were kind of pulled back into it, or were you always on this path that you're currently on? I'm just curious.
That's a really great question, Adam. You know, way back when I'm a singer. I loved to sing, and media and storytelling's been always a passion of mine. When I was in high school, we even had a radio and TV station, what an opportunity, right? And it's funny
wish more high school still had that, by
I
the way.
know.
I mean, come on.
Right? Yes. And I actually really thrived in it. And one of my professors said, you should pursue this. This is what you should do.
Wow.
Now, the point of the story, too, is life's not linear. And it does have such, as you said, zigzags and spirals in it. So my background, really, I went on more into like experiential education. I went into training and organizational development and working with leaders on how to be their best selves, and how do you work systemically within an organization to actualize everyone's talents and gifts. I also, in my 20s, was very into expeditionary outdoor adventure learning. So I was the camp counselor, ropes course facilitator. I was a sea kayak instructor. I was a river raft guide. Like,
that's amazing.
So a crazy story, though, is I remember telling my my ex-husband, who's amazing. So we shared children, obviously. And I said, I wasn't doing media at the time. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm going to do something in radio, and it's probably not going to be commercial. And it's going to be like Oprah big, like something like that. I was like, are you ready for that? And he was like, okay, 10 years later, it took 10 years, Adam, until I got dialed into the amazing radio station, KBMR, which is a nationally acclaimed station, which changed my life, another milestone. And I was a radio broadcaster for 17 years. See Jane Do was birthed out of that. It's a grant-funded radio program, which morphed into events and conferences and connecting with all the amazing women, and also just men like yourself who are looking for a more equitable and just world.
Yeah, that is so funny. I always feel like and I don't know if I'll use the word destiny or attraction or drawn or like a path that you're supposed to be on. But when I hear your story, I mean, I haven't thought about this story, maybe, I don't know, 20 years, but you remind me of one that happened to myself where I'm like, when in high school, and this is, it's so funny to think about this. In high school, I had this opportunity, and I think it was like 10th grade, something like that. I had this opportunity to do a radio show, like in the morning before school. But the problem was I already didn't go to school that often because I was pursuing an internship in finance. So the school basically said, Adam, you're only going to school 2 hours a day anyway. Like, you got to come to school at some point, like if you want to graduate. So I made the decision to continue on finance and to not do the radio side of things. And then hilarious, now I probably haven't even thought about this until you just said it. Then, I had a 14-year career in finance. Everything was fine. I start my first podcast, start publishing books, things like that. And then it drew me back.
Isn't that
then
wild?
Now I'm full time in this for the last 8 years. So
wow.
It's almost like, wow. So that decision I made in 10th or 11th grade, whatever it was, right or wrong, or however, it was the decision I made, but I got pulled right back. Like, sometimes you just don't know.
You don't. I mean, here's the crazy thing. In a weird way, you do know, right? Like somewhere deep in your heart, you knew.
11th grade Adam did not know. 11th grade Adam was thinking about, you had foresight of handing out lyrics in 4th grade. 11th grade Adam was like, what am I going to eat? I'm hungry. I'm sorry, I didn't get much further.
By the way, that is like, let's face it, as a human being, those are like our core needs. Our core needs being met. And let me tell you, even working, so I've worked in all sectors, and I love, right now I'm just right where I need to be, working with the ERA Coalition, the Equal Rights Amendment. And it's being back in the nonprofit world too, where a lot of our work is in that pendulum of sustaining and thriving as an organization, and you're trying to change the world, right? And there's big stuff. But I love that, Adam. Your story reminds me too of like how it's so important for us to be easy on ourselves. And I think after the pandemic, especially, so much shifted for us, like where we are intentional with our energy, like where we put our time, and to be patient and easy. And maybe those dreams you had as a child, sometimes it takes a while, but it's all going to be on purpose, right? It's all of that had reason. Because look at you now, like you're integrating your business and finance world exactly here. With
it's
what
funny.
It's funny.
It's a trip to think about. So switching slightly focus here, was your content always, when you were transitioning from radio to See Jane Do, was your content always kind of focused on this, or was there a point that it switched to, more in terms of the thought process of how to help women and how to support the women community?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, so when I did take that leap into radio, which now, look at it now, it's like podcasts and multimedia. We didn't have social media back then either.
Of course not.
No, that wasn't a thing. So now we're just learning the new media landscape and how to optimize that, connecting with people. So it was about 17 or 18 years ago when I joined on at KVMR. So initially I had a music program, which I had for years, and like a primetime music show. And I threw that.
What kind of music? I just have to ask because I'm nosy. Oh my
gosh, that's okay. It changes all the time. Honestly, initially it was a lot of world music. I would feature.
I just didn't know. I didn't think if you'd have been like, oh, it was all heavy metal, I'd have been like, whoa, really? No.
Well, I'm learning. So by the way, my partner is a singer and a musician. And so he grew up like the old rocker kid from Michigan, who then moved to LA when he was like 19 to be a rock star. And so it's what I love is how
Bob Seger. Okay.
Oh, he can sing a mean Bob Seger, but the night moves, I'm telling you. But anyway, it's so, again, on our own path and how it evolves. So both of us now are so very much, more recently with the radio program, and just what we love is funk and soul. Like funk and soul is such the heart of, especially when you look at jazz and the origins, and like, that's what I love. That's what gets me going now. So if you give me Chic or Sister Sledge or the OJs or the I mean, like all of it, I think is just all about storytelling in such sometimes a really simple but heartful way. And that's what I love. So did that answer your question? Like,
I just had to. I know a little sidebar there. It's okay.
There's a side note, but I did. I interviewed so many musicians, a lot of like, the Indigo Girls or Michael Franti or whoever was coming through town. And I loved connecting through story, exactly what you're doing, being curious and interviewing people, connecting that way. And then it was like, oh, I love this. And as I mentioned with my daughter, something shifted. And nope, I'm really supposed to be focusing on women's leadership, helping to create a platform to actualize their voice. And that has since morphed into coalition building and co-creating community together. Right. It's
And the reason I wanted to go so far into your backstory is because I just kind of wanted to illustrate a point here, is that is that like there's other people that'll watch this, that they have something that they're drawn to as well. It could be leadership, it could be helping communities, it could be different things. And maybe, at some point in life, they or society, whatever you want to say, I'm not splitting hairs here, but at some point they may have put themselves into a box. And like I put myself into a box. I was this finance guy and that's what I did, right? But when I gave myself a little bit more opportunity to explore and maybe get out of that box and look at myself a little bit differently, it didn't mean I lost that. It just meant the pie got bigger. So that's one of the fun part about exploring someone's story, is that, wow, you were pulled back to something that you didn't even know you were thinking in fourth grade, right? I'm pulled back. I'm like, so sometimes these draws, sometimes it makes sense to go with it.
I mean, and here's the thing too. I mean, I see this more even with the millennials. I'm a Gen X, but I see it more even with the millennials and Gen Z, is like, we aren't necessarily in a box, right? Yep. So when someone's like,
they know that,
they know
we
that.
didn't always know that.
No. And when someone's like, oh, who are you? Right. What do you do? It's like, I mean, for sure founding CJ Do, co-founding Indivisible Women, being part of the ERA coalition. We have 1,000 things, right, that we've listed of what our talents and passions are. And the important part is, no, we're not in a box. It might feel a little chaotic at times, but I mean, we have the freedom.
We'll blame that on the prefrontal cortex. Okay.
There you go.
So I know you have a ton going on. I know some things that we kind of have our conversations offline, and maybe I'm privy to information. So I'm gonna ask this in a broad way. What's going on that you can tell me about right now? Because there's a lot of exciting things going on.
What can I tell you about? Well, first of all, I am part of an extraordinary team with the ERA coalition, and that's the Equal Rights Amendment. And some of you might be going, what is the ERA? By the way, it was introduced 100 years ago. And it's basically saying that no one will be discriminated against based on sex. And we've been working on this for 100 years. We say 100 years and not one more. And this is part of the 28th Amendment to include it in our Constitution. And we are closer than ever, Adam, to having this in our Constitution, which, by the way, we're one of the only countries that does not have sex equality in our Constitution, and the only developing country that does not. So just to put that in perspective. So what I'm excited about right now is I've been working with the coalition on especially bringing together more partners in this movement and our programming. We're restructuring how we optimize our over 300 partners who are really leaders of the equality movement, which is extraordinary. And so we have...
What is that like, by the way, being in the middle of all this? Because you're, for all sake and purposes, I mean, you're in the middle of history right now, like in our moment in time.
It really is. And I'm so mindful, Adam, of the shoulders we stand on and the energy that's gone into making this a reality. And right now, for example,
100 years of work, 100 years of work, literally.
And we don't have time anymore. Like, there's so many numbers thrown out about how much longer it will take to close the gender gap. And I'm going to tell you that the 28th Amendment, the ERA being included in our Constitution, is going to drastically shift that needle for gender equity, and sex equity and sex equality intersects with everything in our lives. So climate, economics, health. We saw a big turning point for us. An unfortunate one was the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And I think a lot of people woke up and said, wait, you mean that wasn't like a solid deal for us? Like, that's not legally supported, taken away. And so things like we just saw in Pennsylvania where the ERA was used to support body autonomy, for example, right? For women, and this affects men and women. And very much we talk about abolishing the patriarchy, and the patriarchy has been very strong in all of this. So that I'm just sharing that because it's leading us into how we work with these amazing partners, and it's a lot of wonderful power and power with each other, not power over each other. We have a convening coming up in LA where, in partnership with many folks, but including the California Commission on the Status of Women and Mount St. Mary's and the ERA Youth Coalition, which is part of the Young Feminist Party and Feminist Front, for example, we're coming together to look at the cost of not having the ERA, because this is certainly an economic issue. And of course, uniting through story, right? What are the stories we're telling so that people do know about the ERA, right? Like my goal is that this is front and center on all sectors, that we all know what the ERA is, and we also know why it's so important. So, and we have other things. We're partnering with a new musical that's coming out in New York called Suffs. It's a Broadway musical, and Hillary Clinton and Malala are the producers. And we're going to have an ERA advocacy night. We're going to have a block party. We have a comedy night coming up with some A-listers. And that's going to be happening in LA. So more to come on that. Yeah. But we're just in it. We're in the grind, Adam. We're doing it. And this involves everyone. So really, folks who are even connected with us right now, like you are part of this, and we are all a voice of the ERA, and you are all necessary in this. It is tremendous. Like, it's time. It's time. It's 100 years. Not one more.
Nowadays, pros and cons here. So with social media and with, media, there's just so much reach. It's so many ways to get your message out. Con is you're vying for eyeballs, and there's so many other players. You're like, whether it's, season, Target, whatever, it doesn't matter. Not to pick on Target, by the way, but just in general, it's the first one that popped in my head. But with advertisers of all sorts, and everybody's, the amount of ads we see per day and content and things like that, what goes viral, what doesn't go viral. You have a strong media background, so I'm interested from your perspective, because you're behind the scenes in all of this. Like, how do you stay in front? Like, how do you continue? Because especially with these, I'm not going to say short attention spans, but these shorter media cycles, to be specific. Like, how do you stay in front?
Right. It's a good question. I think that's twofold. It's probably more than twofold, but
I'm gonna give you 1,000-fold on that one. There's not one, and there's more folds happening as we speak.
Threefold. One is you have a pulse. You have a pulse on what's going on, and you have to trust that. So you really have to listen to your gut and your heart. Your mind might think otherwise, but that's what you have to listen to. So, like for example, when my colleague and friend and I launched and created this initiative in LA called 50 Women Can Change the World in Media and Entertainment. And it was bringing 50 women together in the industry to close the gender gap and create systemic change. When we launched that initiative, we did the soft launch, and it happened to be 3 days after the Harvey Weinstein debacle broke. What crazy timing. So there had to be something in Tabby and I of a sense of, I don't know why, but this is what we need to pay attention to. So having a pulse, paying attention. A big part too is I really believe right now what shifts and changed our culture, it always has, is stories. So the more that we can apply how all of our personal stories tie into whatever it is we care about, in this case, it's creating gender equity and equality in my lane. How does that apply to every single one of us, right? That's my job. Like, how does this connect to you, Adam? And how does this connect to the folks joining us now? The third part, as you mentioned, different corporate groups, right? Is relationships. And I know Dr. Nancy talks about this a lot. Relationships are one of the most important things. So when I talk about community, it is based on the relationships we have with others. So even our work with the ERA, we are forming partnerships in all sectors, right? So one of my good friends founded NIA Impact Capital, which is changing how we invest our money to make a better world for equity and climate and racial justice. That's a great example of that, right? So we just had we just partnered with KZK Studio last week or 2 weeks ago to kick off Fashion Week, right? So we're going into, we're playing in the, we're not eating the box. We're playing in all sectors. Part. We can't just rely on social media, right? It's a buzz. You start, you know how that is. It starts to create a buzz. You know, See Jane Do was myself and just a couple of other team members, but it created this bigger, it's like bigger than life part. And that's because it was through community, it was through relationships, it was through stories. And it's a lot. We're always having to feel like we stay ahead, but stay in your lane. Don't get overwhelmed with it. I mean, find others that do something else really well if you don't feel like that's what you do. Like stay in your, you know, I mean, actualize what your gifts are and your passion. If you can show up in your best way and your best self, you're going to have your best life. We can't do it all. I can't do it all. And we have 1,000 things on our plate here with the coalition. I realize that, but does that answer your question about
it? Does. And what I do like about this idea of staying in your lane is that you do, when you're doing it though, and you're meeting people where they're at. So some of the things that you mentioned today was, you know, a comedy show, a production, right? Broadway production, fashion. Like, this is where people already are at. So you're interjecting yourself into conversations, but in an authentic way. Like, you're not just doing a random post or activation because it's, and not saying, not to pick on this, I even hate to say it, but like, it's Pets Day or it's this or that. Sure, you could do that. I'm not saying that maybe that would work, but you just have to find an authentic way to get it to work. It wouldn't be just a random post that links pets with ERA Coalition, right? Like, it may or may not fit depending on how you do it. So, not picking on pets again.
With you. Yeah. I mean, Zakiya, who you just had on recently, our CEO, she has incredible dogs that she loves so much. So for Zakiya and creating gender equity, that could very much be through her pets, right? It was a lot with when we co-created Indivisible Women, and it ended up being one of the largest indivisible groups in the country at the time. And so many women were stepping into advocacy for the first time.
Wow.
We had like the divers like me, and then some are like, you know, just wading in the water, and some are just putting their toes in. Like, how does this feel to me? And without creating judgment or competing against each other, more so our message was show up in the best way you can with what you love to do. So if you love, like Dr. Nancy, working with horses, and that's the best way to create relationship and create a more equitable world through that, then do that. And you know what? When she's on her horse and in her lane, she's going to wave to us and say, I see you. We still see each other. We're still intersecting with each other. We still go to a parking lot and have tailgate parties with each other, right? It's just not, we don't have to do it all, but do find what you love and then do that. Like if it's dancing or singing, I love to sing. So I'm exploring that more. But it's exciting times, Adam.
That's fun. And you just reminded me, I just got excited. I'm going out to see Dr. Nancy at her equestrian center. So I'm excited about that too. Yes. I think that's in March. Yes, in March. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. We're going to shoot some content.
When are you going to be there in March? You are?
Yeah, it's in March sometime off the top of my head. Yeah, I think like mid-March. Like we'll finally, she's always traveling. You know how hard it is to get in Dr. Nancy's schedule.
I do know. Maybe we're going to be in our team's going to be in LA in mid-March. So we'll have to stay connected. Or, I mean, obviously we're connected for the book, but you can come to our comedy night.
That will be exciting. And yes, I agree. Well, Elisa, I just have to say it has been so much fun having you on the show today. I want people to follow up. I know we scratched the surface on some of these topics. So multiple things that they can follow up on. Of course, learn more about See Jane Do, the ERA Coalition, connect with you. I mean, how do people connect?
So the best way to connect right now is eracoalition.org. And you can email me at eparker@eracoalition.org. And check out cjanedo.com. And, we kicked this off with the state of feminist leadership, which we kind of got to in our own roundabout way. But a key part, I would just wrap this up by saying I love to say, don't be a dick, be a Jane. And we're all Janes. And it really is about how we all show up. And it's not leaning into systems that don't serve us anymore. But we get it. We have a chance to reimagine what's possible. And that's part of what the ERA Coalition is doing. And that's part of what we'll see in this book that I'm honored to be part of, with Dr. Nancy and others, Tiffany Schlain and Gloria Feld and Zakia and Yancini. I mean, it's amazing. So
it is amazing. The whole family. I love it. It's so fun.
It's a family. And I'm excited that folks who are joining us now too could be part of that as well. So who knows where this is going to go, Adam? It's gonna be
I know.
exciting.
We're going to have a, I already know. I see it. Like, it's in God's hands, and I see it. I just see I see all the interviews and the individuals I've had the privilege to bring on the show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I've seen some of the content, so it's going to be great. And to the audience, as always, if this is your first time tuning into Mission Matters, and if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, this is your personal invitation. Hit the subscribe button. We have more shows. We have more interviews coming up, more great guests. We don't want you to miss anything. So definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra friendly, don't forget that review. We won't be mad at you for that one. Elisa, really has been a pleasure. I can't wait till the next time you get to come on the show when the book is out and live, and we'll be celebrating. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Adam. And I'm going to see you in LA in March. I have a feeling.
Yeah. I see it. I see it.
Me too. Thank you.